Let's learn how to make the Creativity for Kids Quick Knit Button Scarf. This kit includes everything you need to make a loom knit scarf. In your kit, you'll find yarn, instructions, a rectangle loom, loom hook, plastic darning needle, plastic sewing needle, needle threader, heart buttons, sewing thread, an embroidered patch, and a gift tag. Let's begin by setting up the knitting loom. Tie your yarn to the anchor peg, leaving a 2-inch tail. You'll weave this in later. Wrap the yarn around the pegs in a figure 8 pattern. Start by wrapping around the first peg on the bottom right counterclockwise and around the top right peg clockwise. Repeat wrapping like this until you reach the end, and there's 1 loop on each peg. You won't be wrapping the pegs on the short ends of the loom for this project. Now push the loops down so they're at the base of the pegs, because next you'll work it back putting a second loop on each peg. To start, skip the last peg that you wrapped. That peg will only have 1 loop. Work the other pegs by wrapping the bottom pegs clockwise and the top pegs counterclockwise with your yarn. Once there are 2 loops on each peg except for the first one, wrap your working yarn around the anchor peg. Now let's begin working the loops. With your knitting hook, take the bottom loop on the first peg and bring it up and over the top loop and off of the peg. Repeat this across. There's a groove in the peg that you can use to guide your hook. Once you work across the bottom and there's only 1 loop on each peg, turn the loom around and work the other side the same way. Picking the bottom loop up and off of the peg. Before we wrap the pegs again, you'll want to push your loops down. And now, wrap again, skipping that first peg on the top. And then use the hook to move the loops the same way that you did before. Once you're done, pull the scarf down through the bottom of the loom. That's all you'll need to do, wrap and then hook. I'll keep going like this until I only have 12 inches of yarn left. To attach the second ball of yarn, just knot the 2 ends together and then trim them. Then continue working. When you work the knotted part, just tuck the ends towards the inside of your work. Keep knitting until you only have about 12 inches of yarn left. Now I'll show you how to finish your scarf. Begin by moving all of the loops from the top row of the pegs onto the bottom row, so there are 2 loops on each peg. Then, same as before, take the bottom loop up and off of the peg, so just 1 loop remains on each. Starting on the opposite end of the yarn tail, move the loop on the second peg onto the first peg and use your hook to bring the bottom loop off of the peg. Put the loop back onto the second peg and repeat with the loop on the third peg, placing it on top of the next loop and taking the bottom loop off with the hook. Repeat like this until there's just 1 loop left. Take the final loop off of the loom and bring the tail through it. To weave in the ends, put the yarn tail through the loop of the needle threader and use it to thread the plastic darning needle. Then weave the tail under a few stitches and trim it short. Repeat that with the other tail. Now let's add the buttons. You want to add your buttons to the beginning edge of the scarf, which is looser than the cast-off edge. Use the needle threader to put the sewing thread onto the sewing needle. Sew the button onto the scarf, leaving a tail and knot the thread on the back. You don't need to add buttonholes, just push the buttons through the weave on the other end of the scarf. How cute is that? You can also embellish the scarf with a twist. Attach a 12-inch length of yarn to a corner. Create the twist by holding the two ends together, folded in half, like interlocking C's. Then sew through all 4 layers all the way across. Secure it with a knot and trim the ends. Then turn the scarf right side out to reveal the twist. This kit also includes an embroidered tag that you can add to your scarf. And there's a gift tag that you can attach when you're sharing your project with your friends. You can use the knitting loom over and over again. Once you've finished your scarf, you can find more yarn at lionbrand.com. Happy stitching!